Hi everyone! As we saw in the last video, today's question gives us two options. On the one hand, we have a dragon as a pet, and on the other, speak every animal language. First, we have to point out that this isn't a perfectly balanced either or choice, where the two options are the exact opposites. Like having to do everything with a cell phone versus living without one, just to give you a simple example. Both options sure involve animals, and that's the only connection. But the black option is about physical ownership, while the white one is about skill. And since they are two completely separate possibilities, as I mentioned, we can talk about them completely independently of each other. Let's start with the first option, having a dragon as a pet. As usual, let's try to imagine the worst case scenario. The worst thing that could happen if we chose the black option, that is. What's the worst kind of dragon we could get as a gift? If we take into account all the fiction we know, books or otherwise, that features dragons, I'd say a huge beast, intelligent, even capable of speaking, cruel, and able to breathe fire so fiercely that he could wipe out an entire city in just a few minutes. Basically, the dragon from The Hobbit. I don't know if you have seen it, the movie. I did, and it's not a good movie. You watch it just for the special effects, or because, like me, if you are especially fond of the cinematic version of The Lord of the Rings, you felt like giving this other movie a chance too. However, back to the point, if we do so and imagine the dragon in the worst possible light, as we should, since again a requirement of the game should be to consider the worst case scenario as what we're gonna get in the end, and we get Smaug, then I'd say the discussion ends there. There's no point in carrying it further. We can do it for fun though. For example, we could say we're lucky and end up with Grisou, the little cartoon dragon who, against his father's will, wanted to be a firefighter. And why not? It's just as much an invention as the traditional dragons of medieval or earlier times. So, technically, Grisou could count as a possibility too. But if we choose the black option and we are lucky and get a sweet, cute, funny little dragon who dreams of putting out fires, then we might as well buy a lottery ticket right afterwards, striking while the iron of our luck is hot. Jokes aside, the chances of getting Grisou are slim to none. Because the question says dragon, not little dragon. That's like saying man and then expecting a child. It doesn't work that way. So once again, we have to take the question literally, without inventing scenarios that would make things easier and more manageable for us, for sure, but that don't actually follow from the text. And just hypothetically, speaking of Smaug, could we even manage to tame such a dangerous creature? Maybe. But it would definitely take much longer than it would take for the dragon to turn us into smoked bacon. We just can't take that risk, it's far too big. Which means the choice has to go to, of course, speaking every animal language. And here, honestly, I don't see any downsides. Being able to communicate with animals could only be a good thing, in my opinion. Also, generally, speaking a language means being able to understand it when someone else uses it. In this case, our four-legged friends, or two-legged, or no-legged, whatever. So we'd also be able to understand what they're trying to tell us. This is especially important with cats, who, I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes start meowing and keep on going even after you've given them everything you think they want: food, water, petting, whatever. And they still keep meowing. At that point, we call it quits. We just have no idea what our cat wants from us. Of course, we shouldn't forget that communication with animals would have limits. You can forget about discussing politics with a gorilla, to give you an idea. The communication of non-human animals revolves around their natural needs: reproduction, self-defense, protecting their offspring, territory, and so on. And animal language isn't just sounds, it's also gesture, physical acts, much more so than it is for humans. Think of a gorilla beating its chest to intimidate an opponent or what it perceives as one. So it makes sense to think that by choosing the white option, we'd instantly know how to communicate both with sounds and with gestures, because that's what animals do. Another thing comes to mind about the sounds in particular. What kind of vocal cords would we need to be able to speak with every species of animal? With canaries, snakes, elephants, and maybe even insects. They're animals too, after all, you know. And also notice that the text of the white option uses the verb to speak and not just to know. So it's about actually speaking every animal language, not just understanding it. That means the white option would change our bodies at least enough to let us produce a virtually infinite range of sounds. So how would we change, physically speaking? What would we become? Who knows, maybe our neck would expand enough to hold several thousand vocal cords. Or maybe we'd have only a limited number of vocal cords, but ones able to interact in such a way that they could reproduce all those sounds. Kinda like three primary colors combined to generate all the others. Anyway, since we have to choose one, I definitely go with the white option. There's just no comparison and no real choice in my opinion. But I wouldn't be surprised if most people who answer this question picked the dragon one. It's obviously the more bombastic, exciting option, if not necessarily the more fascinating one. So now let's see the final results. As I said, I'm choosing to speak every animal language. That's my superpower of choice for today. Oh, as expected, a majority chose the dragon, a significant one, but not an overwhelming one. Interesting. Alright, that's it for today. Drop your comments below. Tell us what your choice would be. And I see you in the next episode with a new question, which we'll have a look at right now. Next dilemma. So the choice will be between being able to fly and being invisible. Okay, we'll deal with this in the next video. In the meantime, I wish you a wonderful day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.